On this morning's episode of the 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliotte Friedman dropped a major bomb and an update on the Marner to Vegas situation. Could the Vegas Golden Knights be accused of tampering unless a trade takes place ahead of free agency on July 1st? We'll discuss what Elliotte had to say coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we had a new update from Elliotte Friedman on the new 32 Thoughts podcast that came out this morning. Of course, recapping everything that went on at the 2025 NHL Draft, and of course, discussing all the latest rumors and trade intel that he had around the league. And the podcast opens up with a pretty big bomb that he dropped on the whole Mitch Marner situation and the possibility of him heading to be a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, he starts off by kind of recapping, which we kind of already knew some of this from before, that the Vegas Golden Knights have been after Mitch Marner for a period of time, well over a year. Last offseason, there were trade discussions between the Maple Leafs and the Golden Knights around Mitch Marner. They could never agree on what the package would be, especially going back from Vegas. The belief was the Maple Leafs were pretty insistent on Shea Theodore being the primary piece coming back, and Vegas wanted to keep and sign him and refused to include him, so trade talks never got far enough to the point that there was really, I'm not sure how close you want to say it was, but there was definitely discussions, maybe not super close, but close enough. A lot of these discussions, I think, happen around players all the time, and we don't always hear about it, but it is what it is. And then again this year at the NHL trade deadline, we all had heard about the fact that Mitch Marner was approached by the Maple Leafs about going to the Carolina Hurricanes. And there was a trade offer between Toronto and Carolina to send the, I guess you want to call him the unhappy Mikko Rantanen, who was not going to sign the long-term extension with the Hurricanes, which would land him in Toronto, where he apparently would have signed a long-term extension, and it would have required Marner becoming a member of the Hurricanes. Well, Marner has a no-move clause, as we know, and he declined that offer. Now, it was also you could say a pivotal time in Marner's life off the ice as a person. He and his wife were expecting their first child. Really, there's maybe no real good time ever to uproot your life, but if there was ever a time that you definitely would not want to do that, that would have been a time when, less likely that you ever would agree to anything, and he had the right to do that. Obviously, they're seriously considering, by the sounds of things, a move by July 1st, and that's within their right as well. And obviously, life has changed again after being settled with their child and all that. That's their own personal choice and preference, and, well, it is what it is. We don't really have any comments on what Marner wants or doesn't want. That's his personal preference. But obviously, after that trade was turned down to the Hurricanes, there were further discussions, as I've talked about here on the channel before, and it involved Vegas again. Vegas comes back into the picture, and there was talks about a 3-team trade, which would have seen Mikko Rantanen be traded, Mitch Marner be traded. The problem is that what was going to be going to the Hurricanes was not acceptable and never reached a point where everybody was totally happy. So again, Mitch Marner would have ended up becoming a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Mikko Rantanen would have ended up becoming a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and obviously Carolina would have got pieces from either one or both of Toronto and Vegas, and those pieces that were, I guess we don't know exactly which pieces were tossed around, but they were never at a point where Carolina was happy to consummate the deal, or to the point we don't believe that Mitch was asked to waive his no trade in that scenario, because things never got far enough along that everybody was happy and ready to pull the trigger. So there's that. And now, of course, we've heard Mitch Marner very likely to test free agency on July 1st. Everything that we've heard about the situation is that there really hasn't been any ongoing negotiations with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We know that he and his agent had said that they didn't want to negotiate in season. They wanted to focus on hockey, and they would consider talking at the end of the season. Well, the end of the season's been here for quite some time for Toronto after they ended up eventually losing in the playoffs to the Panthers. And at this point, there really hasn't been any meaningful dialogue, by the sounds of things, between Marner's camp and the Leafs. So Brad Treliving a few days ago said, unless something changes, we believe his intention is to test the market on July 1st. So here we are. And that's really not a big surprise to anybody. We've heard for some time that it's expected for him to go to market July 1st and make his decision. He might want to meet with teams, and we've heard about the circus and everything that might be created by the Marner camp around choosing his next team and destination where he's going to sign for multiple years. We don't even know what the contract's going to look like. It's expected it's not even going to be an 8-year term, most likely a 4 or 5 year term. And they kind of might want to set up meetings, hold court, if you will, have teams come to them, meet with them on probably virtually in the beginning, maybe set up a meeting or two to go do an in-person visit, and then ultimately make his choice, which could drag things out by the Marner camp before he signs anywhere from a week and a half, 2 weeks, who knows. And teams are not going to be thrilled about this. A lot of teams that are interested in Marner were kind of put off by saying, well, we can't wait several days or weeks before he makes his decision. We're happy to have him, we're happy to make an offer, but we can't be waiting that long, because if we don't get the player, we need time to pivot to plans B, C, D, whatever, so we can kind of have time to revamp our roster. If we're left hanging for a week or two and we don't sign them, we're kind of screwed at that point, because all the other players we'd consider otherwise are going to be off the market. We could look at trades, but that's a little more challenging. So ultimately, it sounds like Vegas is trying to get ahead of things here. So a lot of people, when we talked yesterday in the video saying there was this massive rumor of the draft that the Vegas Golden Knights and the Toronto Maple Leafs were discussing a sign and trade, a lot of us were kind of intrigued and somewhat confused, because, well, why would Vegas do that when they can just sign him in a couple of days and not have to give the Maple Leafs anything? So that's the part that was most confusing, which is what Elliott didn't get into on the draft broadcast, just that there was a lot of ongoing discussions, and now he's kind of broken that down a lot further, and there's some pretty interesting information in there, basically saying that a couple of things. One, we're still expecting a health update on Alex Pietrangelo. The team, as of yesterday after the draft, Vegas did speak to the media, and they said that they're still evaluating things with doctors, and that they should hopefully have some clarity here very soon, possibly in a few days. But as of right now, not clear. I know some other reporters besides Elliott are saying that they believe that Alex Pietrangelo is not going to play this year, and his career might even be over, that he may not play ever again. We don't know if that's true, but there's some out there that think it is. So it will give Vegas some flexibility cap-wise if need be, but with some uncertainty there, and then you look at their cap situation, in theory, if they're going to pay Marner $12-13 million, they're going to have to clear a little bit of space. So the rumored trade was going to be the signing rights of Mitch Marner going to Vegas for Nick Waugh, who's making $3 million and signed for a couple more seasons, and then possibly Nick Hague, who's a pending restricted free agent. It's unsigned at the moment. Well, the Hague part's a little less clear if he's included or he's not, but the belief is that Waugh would be. And like I said, all indications are from reporters that Marner was still only going to sign a contract with Vegas that was likely going to be 4, maybe 5 years at most. So okay, well, there's no benefit here to do a sign and trade unless you're really going for the 8th year, right? Because you can sign with your existing team, get the 8th year, get moved to where you want to go. Everybody's happy. Your team gets some kind of return, and you all move on. But that doesn't appear to be the case, and the reason for that is that Elliott Friedman has heard that if the Maple Leafs and Vegas don't work out a trade, and that if Mitch Marner goes to market on July 1 and signs with the Vegas Golden Knights, that the Maple Leafs might go after Vegas for tampering. Now, that's a dirty word in the NHL, and you hear it lots, and there's even lots of jokes around it about how there's all kinds of tampering, because, when the free agency window opens on July 1st, you get some pretty, flurry of contracts pretty quick. Do you honestly think some of these players are making life-altering decisions and getting contracts done within, 10, 15 minutes of the opening of free agency? It seems pretty unlikely. Like, you have to think that there was some chatting. Now, to some degree, what happens usually behind the scenes is that agents are usually the ones doing more of the talking with other teams. Usually that starts as early as the draft combine. Because when you get everybody in one place, you get a lot more talk, and the players aren't really involved, and it's not, I guess, probably not really viewed upon as tampering. At least it hasn't been in the past, because darn well it happens all the time. But agents are kind of doing research behind the scenes, talking to teams, saying my client's coming up on free agency, trying to gather who would be interested so they can kind of know who they're going to be talking to, and those teams can start to think, okay, we might have a shot at this guy. We can, that's how the offers come in quickly. Players can be like, okay, yep, and that's why things happen so quick. And a lot of it is the agents doing work behind the scenes. But we don't know. Elliott didn't go into details about evidence of tampering or anything of that nature, but he said the NHL has had multiple memos out during the past year, including one here recently before the draft or at the draft, reminding teams that, this is something that you can't do, and that they would love to make an example out of somebody. So, of course, we don't know 100% this would happen, but he believes that if the Golden Knights work out a trade with Toronto ahead of time, not only does this help Vegas clear a little bit of cap space, but it also gets them exclusive signing rights to Mitch Marner for, depending on when it happens, at least a day and a half, or whatever it ends up being, ahead of July 1, that they would hope that they could then have that exclusive window to hammer out a contract and get him signed, and then he's not signed as a free agent. They held his rights, and that they believe at that point there'd be a lot less likely situation of any accusations of tampering. So that's pretty darn interesting. So if you're Toronto, I guess kind of depends on how you feel about it. Now, if the Maple Leafs can get anything in return, since they know they're losing this guy, anything is better than nothing, right? And Nick Waugh, to be honest, is not nothing. He's a pretty useful player. He's a really good number 3 center. He's signed on a reasonable contract. He's won the Stanley Cup with Vegas. He's got a lot of good experience. He's still not overly old either. This is a good piece. I mean, it's not a high-end kind of, he's not going to do what Marner does. He might score you, 12 to 15 goals, might get you 30, 40 points, but he's an effective player in his role. And it's a player that the Leafs don't have. So, to be honest, I think he would be a good pickup. And if that's all you get, that's all you get. Otherwise, you're getting nothing. So I don't think Leaf fans or the team really should be disappointed by that. So that would be helpful. But I guess if you're Toronto, I guess it depends on how bad you want to push this tampering narrative and what evidence they would have of doing so. I mean, we've heard the last time the T word, if you want to call it that, came out was when the Senators had accused, Michael Andlauer, the owner, had called it soft tampering when all the Brady Tkachuk stuff was going around, that he wanted to leave, and he was really ticked off about all the rumors around his captain. When all indications that the team has is that Brady loves being in Ottawa, he doesn't want to go anywhere. Why are these constantly coming up? And other teams' reporters constantly saying he's going to end up here, he's going to end up there. And anyways, he made this big accusation. Nothing has ever come from it. We heard his little, interview where he sounded off, and that's it. The story kind of died there, and we've heard nothing about it. When it comes to punishments, I mean, because Bill Daly was asked about this recently, you can be suspensions, you could be looking at loss of draft picks, and there could be other types of punishments. It could be fines. So again, I know it's kind of hard to say how this is going to go, but this is a pretty serious thing if the Leafs are seriously looking at. We know Vegas has been after Marner for a long time, but did they break any rules? And like I said, Elliott doesn't have any evidence. He's just talking about what everybody was saying at the draft and what the speculation going around. So clearly, this could be a big deal. We're curious to see if a trade is worked out. It sure seems like it's been written in the stars for some time that Mitch was going to end up there anyway. It's probably in everybody's best interest if a trade did happen. The Leafs get a piece. They're helped out a little bit. And Vegas probably doesn't have to worry about being accused of any wrongdoing. So it's going to be real curious to see how things go and if anything ever comes out for accusations against the Golden Knights. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think we're more likely to see a trade? Do you think Vegas has done anything wrong? And how is the league going to handle this? Because like I said, Elliott said the team's been warned and the league would love to make an example out of somebody. Could it be Old Vegas getting in trouble. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news on this situation as well as all the other 32 teams around the NHL. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.